Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Failed Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We got a great conversation ahead of us. Thank y'all so much. I hope that you enjoy it. I know that we're all going to learn something. So let me bring our next guest on. There we go. Mrs. Orly Amor. Amor means love. What an interesting last name. Welcome to the Failed Podcast. How are you doing today? How does the weather find you? Where you're streaming in all the way from Florida, correct?
Right.
How has your day been?
Amazing. It was very productive, I would say. Still not
That's
done.
great.
Here we are.
Yeah, we're just getting going. Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Here at the Feld Podcast, we enjoy sharing people's stories as far as like the failures and challenges that they've been through and what they have learned. Me and you talked behind the scenes, and you gave me a little bit of how you grew up and some of the, let's just say, traumatic things that you experienced, and you said you were very open to sharing it, but it's also very important because of where you are today. Like, it did
you.
not defeat you, it taught you and it made you strong and resilient. So the best way that you know how to do an intro, because you're obviously a professional public speaker as well, give us an intro of how you became and who you were, what you went through back in the day, and then I'm going to just jump in and hit you with a few questions so that we can get some nuggets and wisdom from your life experiences.
Sounds good. So I'm going to start with a story. Would that be okay? Because that would bring
Absolutely.
us to where I was, and how I am doing, and all that stuff. It's kind of the catalyst, the pivotal point, we call it, right? Um, well, I was living in Florida before this time around, and I was in property management for a very long time, 25 years.
Mhm.
And one day, one of my girlfriends calls me up and says, "Hey, I need you to come and speak at this women's shelter that I am volunteering at." I said, "Really? What do you want me to speak about? Property management?" I was making fun of her.
Yeah.
And she said, "No, silly, I want you to come and tell your story." And I said, "Oh, no, that's not going to happen." So I don't know about you, Sam, but you must have an annoying friend somewhere. And everybody in
And
your
we all
audience
do.
probably has an annoying friend. And she
Yeah.
was one of my best friends, but also very annoying. So for 3 weeks straight, she called me every single day. "Are you going to do it? Are you going to do it?" And after 3 weeks, I said to her, "Listen, I'm about to not take your calls. Can you tell me why you're choosing me?" And she said, "Well, I want you to come and tell your story. You're living the lifestyle that most people dream about, and you're always bubbly and you're always in a good mood. Every time we go to
Yeah.
networking events, people hug you. People who don't even know you hug you. So I want you to come and tell your story. Give
Yeah.
these people hope." And I said, "Well, okay." And I was more than persistent than she is. I was like, "Well, how do I get you off my phone?" Like, I really did not want to do this. And she said, "For you to say yes." So guess what, Sam? That's what I did. So a few months later, I'm speaking at this women's shelter. Now, mind you, I was already public speaking in the realm of property management. That's what I was doing at the time. And so I didn't have any problems with speaking, but I had to hire a coach to help me speak on this topic.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you my story in a minute. But here I am a few months later speaking at this women's shelter. And when I was done, there was not one dry eye in the place.
Mm.
And when I got off the stage, something very weird happened that has never happened to me before when I spoke on property management. People were coming to me and thanking me and hugging me and crying on my shoulder. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving us hope. Thank you for sharing." All of it. And I was not
Yeah.
used to that at all. I was used to, like, "Oh, Miss Amor, in my condo association, we have problems."
Business, all
It was
business.
all business. And here there was a woman that was crying profusely. We could not stop her. And I said to her, "Honey, you need to calm down." She said, "No, you don't understand." I said, "No, I do understand, sweetheart. You need to breathe." She's like, "No, you don't understand." And back and forth we went until everybody around us was listening in. You know how it is, right?
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
some commotion is happening, everybody's tuning in. And she said, "No, you don't understand." And I was
Wow.
like, "Oh my God, what just happened?" Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I was really taken aback. And she took a piece of paper out of her pocket and she showed it to me. And she said, "You see here? This is how I was going to kill myself this morning.
Oh,
In
oh,
fact, I don't remember driving from the house to the shelter because you see here, that's not
yeah.
where I was going. But I heard you speak and I want to live. I just need you to show me how."
Wow.
And in my head was not like, "Oh, wow, this is cool." No,
Yeah,
this was like, "Oh my God, I just saved somebody's life."
absolutely.
That's what happened to my head. Now, let me give you my story in 15 seconds of what I shared. I was a beaten up child. I was bullied. I was molested 4 times before the age of 14. I was raped 3 times before the age of 22, twice
Mm,
gang raped, 9 months apart, left for dead. I was married to a very abusive husband, both mentally and physically. And as a result of that, I gained a morbid amount of weight, 428 pounds at my heaviest. I still made it through law school and got an MBA and all of the above.
yeah.
So, why am I telling you this? Because in the act of sharing, there's contribution. You just don't know
Mm,
whose life you're going to change. So
yeah,
for those listening and to yourself, it's okay to share your story. There's no competition of stories. Nobody has gone through worse than the other. It's just a different way of how we live.
yeah.
And the light is that. And that's it.
Well, it's interesting because the lady that was crying, she obviously was impacted through what you've been to, and she in essence saw hope for herself. And to me, there's so much power in storytelling, and you've done a lot of coaching in business. You've helped a lot of people, and you've coached CEOs, and you've talked and taught a lot of people, and I love that because that takes a certain skill set, communication, connection, and you got to be good at what you do. But once we're good at what we do, it opens doors,
Mm,
and it's up to us if we want to go through those doors. And you got the invitation from a friend where you were going to start going from sharing for business to sharing your story, and you were going to start speaking to people's hearts. And that's when things get a little more serious from my perspective. And here at the Feld Podcast, we believe in the power of storytelling. And you develop speakers, and you've been doing it for a long time. You coach them, and you help them become. You help them find a way to share their voice. What are some things that you learn from going through all that? As far as resilience or whatever. But how has the lessons from all that try to just hold you down, how does it show up in your life today? Every day when you wake up, how are you better and stronger because of it?
Well, the way that I can answer that is because the way that I can answer that is that you got to leave the victim bag behind you. You got
Okay.
to want to get ahead of the game. You
Yeah.
also have to say something to yourself that basically will empower you to stop looking back. I
I
mean,
love it.
I can live in the past all day long. We all do sometimes, right? We all
Yeah. I
remember the
agree.
time, the blah, 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 blah. We all remember the time a friend backstabbed us. We all
Mm,
remember a time when we got beaten by life. We all remember that time, but we cannot and should not and are not allowed to live there anymore,
yeah.
right? I talk about the brain as like a computer, right? What happens to a computer when it's on overload? What happens to it?
It gets hot, stops
It
working
shuts down.
efficiently.
It shuts down, right? So the
Yeah. Yeah.
operating system can no longer function.
Hmm.
Well, I say that the programs that are in your head have been put there by people you no longer know and no longer care about.
Mm, yeah.
Why would you
Time
give
for an
it?
update.
Stop. Yeah, stop updating. Exactly. Stop the
Yeah.
updating and stop renting them any space in your brain too, because they're
Yeah.
occupying useless space. Is they're
Now,
like
how long
squatters.
how long did it take you to get there? Because there's people that are listening that are kind of in it right now. And
Mhm.
it's not that, they don't want to look back, but the effects of it has just kind of got a hold of them. How did you feel how was the feeling in the transition when you finally said, you know what? I'm looking forward. I'm building myself up, and I'm going to be an impact to other people. How did that look? How long did that take?
It's still a constant effort. I
Hmm.
gotta say that. It's like a muscle. You gotta build it, right?
Yeah.
And every time you see yourself thinking about the past, you literally have to stop yourself and say, hey, how
Mm.
am I doing today? I still have my two legs. I still have my two arms. I'm still breathing freely. That means I'm doing better than some, right? And sometimes I go to the I call it the comparison world, right? Would I rather, let me ask you this, would you rather be on a bench in a park or in your
Hmm.
house right now? I don't know. Would you rather be on a bench in the park and sick or in your house right now? You know, like it's,
Yeah.
we can go further down the rabbit hole of how bad can it get.
Got it.
And there's people who have it worse than us, and there's people who have it better than us, comparing ourselves to them. That doesn't help. That doesn't help, no matter
Mm.
what.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what can I be grateful for today that I have today and keep that in
Mm.
my space, right? Instead of
Yeah.
thinking about yesterday, why don't I think about today? See, many people, when they have goals in life, also, they do the same mistake. They look at how far they have to go. Oh my God,
Oh.
right?
Yeah.
Dreadful, long, but they don't see
Hmm.
how far they came. So I think
Exactly.
it's better to be thankful and grateful for where we've been and how we came through. Now
Yeah.
it's about getting to the next step. And that just takes daily effort. So, how long does it take? It could take just a minute and it could take a year. It depends on you. You got to
Got
make the
it.
decision. The decision is instant, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in this, okay, so a lot of people go through things, whether it's traumatic or just life experiences that we all go through. There's also another level of as far as sharing it. How did you begin to figure out, like, so you're not sharing it and you're not like just kind of venting, but it's like lessons, like you're actually giving people something that they can use and grow from. How did and you obviously developing speakers, how would you speak to someone who says, you know what, I'm motivated right now. I want to share what I've been through, but I don't know how because I just don't want, I don't want to just be wasting my words. What can someone start doing so that they can start like formatting their previous lives so they can start sharing it in their present life?
So it took me a little while where I wasn't crying anymore about sharing my story, right? I would get emotional.
Yeah.
First, I'm going to tell you, you have permission to be
Mm.
emotional. Give
Yeah.
yourself permission. You got to clear it out. It's okay. But don't use the stage as a therapy session. That's what
Got
we
it.
don't do.
Yeah.
If you want to tell your story to impact other people, then you got to do it in a factual manner. Did you see how I did it?
Yes.
I was molested 4 times. I was raped 3 times, twice gang raped. Like it was very factual.
Yeah. It doesn't change because you know it. So make it sound
And
like,
it's my story, and you guys
yeah.
can dramatize it or amplify it. I just told my story. It is what it is. It was
Yeah.
what it was. And there's nothing I can do about it now. What I can do
Hmm.
is I'll share it with you so that you don't feel too bad about your own story, and that you take your story and you share it with other people in order to empower them to get over their hump.
Yeah.
Everybody has that hump that they need to get over. Sometimes
Yes.
we can be very direct and say, okay, get over it. But sometimes we can't because there is some emotion still attached to it. Now,
Yeah.
remember this, the brain doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie, wrong and right, good or bad. Just doesn't know. So, what happens when we tell ourselves, well, this was bad, Orly? And I'm like, yeah, maybe to you, but maybe not to me. So, at
Yeah.
the end of the day, who is right? We are both right. It's how we use it against ourselves. So we got to remember that these are muscles that we need to be building in our brain, and every day be grateful. Every day have a morning ritual of affirmation, or I have post-it notes everywhere here.
Yeah.
One of them says everything always works out for me. It's like it's big, it's this big, it's right in front of me,
Yeah.
right? It's always there, right? Or money comes easy and frequently. Like I have things that are popping up in my world
Mm.
all the time to
Yeah.
remind me to train my brain. So nothing is
Yes.
easy and comes easy. It's a matter of
Hmm.
time and the willpower to change.
You have spoken on so many stages. I was reading your bio. It's in the thousands. It's hard to imagine. Public speaking is people's biggest fear, and I kind of like people use that, and I feel like it needs to kind of be clarified. I think it's more fearful when it's your first time or you don't have a direction as far as what you're gonna say. So, when did you get really comfortable on stage? And do you remember the days when maybe you weren't as comfortable, like in the beginning stages? Just like, is there a different level that just all of a sudden the being fearful of speaking isn't so big because you've stepped into a new level? How did that happen for you?
So first of all, I'm still scared to get on stage. I'm an introvert.
Yeah, okay.
Second of all, people are not afraid of public speaking. They're afraid of humiliation.
Mm,
The
yeah,
true fear behind public speaking is being humiliated or failing at it or
yeah.
not doing a good job.
Uh,
Let me ask you a question, and same goes for your audience. Have you ever seen a good movie that you had to
yes.
share it with somebody and you had to tell them,
Yeah,
oh my God, Sam, I saw this movie, you got to go see it. It's so amazing. You're going to want to see it twice,
yeah.
right? Did you see that I didn't practice telling you that?
No, it's
That's
natural.
something that comes from the heart. Well, it's
Yeah,
exactly what public speaking is. Tell a story, make a point, tell a story. So you
yeah,
can just
yeah.
make a story or even make it up and
Mm,
tell it. But tell it fluently, like if you were telling a friend. Stop thinking about the 2,000 eyeballs at you and think about speaking to one in that crowd, and
yeah,
everyone will feel like you're contact connecting with them. It depends on which direction you're looking at. Sorry.
yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're connecting with one person in one section of the audience and then switch to another section of the audience and then switch to
Hmm.
another section of the audience.
Yeah.
So it's not the fear of public speaking, it's the fear of humiliation. And if you talk about something that you're passionate about, you're never going to go wrong.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So, through all of your life experiences, a lot of us that do like public speaking, we have areas where we're like passionate and we're very insightful about. What are maybe two topics? If someone said, "Hey, bring your best two life experiences that given you the most lessons," what would they be? And then once you share those, I want to dig in on one of them.
What are my biggest life lessons?
Yes.
My first biggest lesson is never quit,
Yeah.
no matter what. Persevere, resiliency, perseverance, consistency. To me, they all go together. There's no goal achieved by quitting.
Yeah.
That would be my first one. And yes, there's many stories to back that one up.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my second biggest lesson is stop listening to everyone. Like,
Mm.
stop listening to anybody. You know, my husband likes to think about what other people think, and I could care less. Think what you
Yeah.
want of me, criticize
Yeah.
me all day long, think good, bad, anything you like, you're allowed to. That's your prerogative.
Hmm.
But as far as me being indifferent to, I'm totally indifferent to it. I really don't care what other people think. So that
So
was
out of those two, they're both great. They both make sense and they're very applicable for anyone in life. But
Mhm.
the second one, the not listening to what people say, I want to zoom in on that because I feel like we struggle, especially when we're doing something that's passion oriented or that's creative. Those seem to really like pop up a lot of hate, a lot of you can't, a lot of your dream is big. Do you remember whenever you started going down this path and then you're like, I want to train thousands of people. I want to write a book. I want to be impactful. Things that really a lot of people don't get to do, and because of that, they might feel a little resentment towards someone who accomplishes it. What were some of the voices in the beginning, and how have they changed now that maybe you've changed the circle that you find yourself in, so that they don't bother you, but now you have people who build you up.
I don't have anybody building me up. And I'm going to say this very, very straightforward because I don't have filter between my brain and my mouth. When I made the decision to go forward with whatever, and people were like, really? You're going to do that? How many
Mm,
people do you want to touch? How many? Like everybody was, not out of jealousy, but because they cannot get there. They can't even think
got it.
about it. They can't even dream it. So, you know
Yeah.
what? If they cannot dream it, they can definitely not achieve it, yet
Yeah.
alone tell me I can't.
Mm,
Right?
yeah, it's true.
So I became a little bit of not resentful. I became, I'm going to show you. Right?
Got it.
I became,
That's good fuel. That's good
that's
fuel.
good fuel. I mean, like, okay, I'm going to show you, but not in the spiteful way that that I would show them. You know what? When you are successful, people will be jealous no matter what. But
Hmm.
when you're successful and you reached what you wanted to reach, who cares what everybody thinks? Are they
Yeah.
paying my bills? Are they taking care of what I take care of? Are they willing to do the work I did in order to
Yeah,
get to
true.
where I am? And that is one of my memes in one of my workshops is people criticize the where you are, but they don't know the price you paid to get there.
Yeah.
And I always remember the price I paid to get to where I am. So I
Yeah.
don't need any encouragement from the outside. I self-taught myself by reading books. Leaders are readers. You got to read books. You got to listen
Absolutely.
to other things. You know what? You don't like to read? Go on YouTube University. I call it YouTube University
Oh
because you can
yeah.
learn anything you want from
Yeah.
YouTube. So
Yeah.
guess what? You need a pep talk? Go listen to a TEDx. Listen to something else but your own brain because your
Yeah.
brain will fail you. It's full of those programs that were put there by other people. So you
Hmm.
got to be careful also with who you hang out with now,
I agree.
because that's new
I
programs.
and speaking of who you hang out with, early as I started chasing my dream, whether it's like in communication and podcasting, I just want to help people.
Hmm.
I realized that I would share that in conversation with people close to me. So they had access to the way that I thought and the way that I dreamed. So it was easy for them to say, to criticize me and say, I don't know, it's too big. It was always full of that I had to kind of learn to not share it so much because I had to go do the work and pay the price, and I experienced that in the beginning, but I couldn't have predicted it. It just started to happen because I'm open whenever I'm sharing. I'm just like, yeah, I wanted to accomplish this and accomplish that. And I was doing it with my friends. And at the end, I learned that okay, I gotta live this out and chase it and to show people the results. And that will speak for itself. But
Exactly.
did you ever experience that, or what advice
Oh,
would you give?
absolutely. Absolutely. I'll tell you a very cute story actually.
Mhm.
In the beginning of 2010, I told my business coach that I would like to impact the lives of 200 million people by 2025.
Mhm.
Goal. And after that, I said, okay, now I don't know how to do that, right? I don't know how to do this. I have no idea. But I remember a quote by Les Brown: the how is not your business. Put the goal up. That's the first step. And there's another good quote by Sir Richard Branson: when an opportunity knocks, say yes, figure it out later. I
Mm.
live by those two mantras.
Yeah.
A few months later, I was living in Florida at the time as well, and I had a nice little pool party at my house where I had a bunch of my friends who are speakers and authors and coaches and all that. They were all around my pool, and we were having a barbecue. And at one point, I hear them talking, and they're all complaining. Nobody's
Mhm.
paying for speakers. There's no money. All kinds of nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And I was in the water, by the way. And I said, guys, what are you talking about? Minimum wage in public speaking is $150,000 a year. And they all looked at me. And I said, yeah, And they're like, Orly, are you crazy? Some of us make 50,
Mm,
some of us 60, some of us 80. 100, that's pushing it. 150, you're out of your mind, Orly. I said, okay, you do you, I'll do me. Now, they hate when I
yeah.
say that.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was thinking, well, thank God I didn't tell them that I triple that. If you know how
Right.
to do
Yeah.
math, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in my head, I had a cartoon playing. Oh my God, they're going to drown me in my own pool, take over the house, take over the dogs. You know, it was one of those things.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of months later, not even a few weeks actually, I was traveling to Europe to speak in a few countries. And on my way back, I was speaking in Arlington, Texas. And as I'm speaking at this huge business conference, there were three guys in the break room for speakers that came over to me. Three speakers,
Mhm.
obviously. And now that you know my story, it was kind of creepy, you know? But, anyways, those three guys come over, and one of them says, "Aren't you Orly Amor?" I said, "Yeah, do I know you? Sorry, I don't remember." They're like, "No, we've never met before, but we've seen you on the circuit." I
Yeah.
said, "Oh, okay." So we started talking, networking, you know. And at one point, one of them says to me, "Look, I'm just curious. How did you get this gig?" I said, "I don't know. I called, I told them what I speak about. They paid me, and I'm here." They all looked at me like if I have three heads. "You got paid?" And I'm like, "Oh, crap. What did I do?" Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I said, "You guys didn't?" They said, "No, we got our expenses paid, but we didn't get paid." I said, "Oh, no, I got paid and I got my expenses paid." And they said,
Yeah.
"Well, we want to know how you did that." And jokingly, because I wasn't coaching speakers at the time, I said, "Well, if I tell you, I'm going to have to charge you." But I was just kidding. And just before I could say, "Just kidding," they said, "Okay, name your price." And I'm like, "What? Oh, no, 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 no. I don't do that. Let's talk
Yeah.
later." You know what I mean? But on my way home from there, a light bulb hit me. And I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. How come I got paid and they didn't? I don't understand that, right? And
Yeah.
that's not fair. Hmm. So I decided to create a program called Business in a Box for public speakers. And
Got
then
it.
I called back the friends that I had around my pool, remember, a month or so
Yeah. All of
before.
them.
I called them up and I said, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about coaching speakers on the business side of public speaking.
Mm.
What do you think? Should I do it?" They're like, "Oh my God, you should totally do it." I said, "I'm willing also to guarantee they'll make 150K their first year in public speaking. Should I do it?" "Oh my God, it's like the Holy Grail. You should totally do it. We'll hire you." And I'm like, "Who are you and what have you done with my friends?" Like just about 2 months ago, you guys made fun of me, right? And
Yeah.
so one of them said to me, "Orly, hold on a second. You should totally do this because what if you help speakers, authors, coaches, people get out there and spread their message and impact lives? That if
Hmm.
they tell you just how many people, you can count them for your 200 million."
Yeah.
And a light bulb went off. Yes, I can get to 200 million by the time that I set out to do it, right?
Yeah.
What if I help speakers? So, see, the how is not your business. And the
True.
opportunity just fell into my lap. I didn't think about coaching until that minute.
But you were ready, and you were in it, and you went through the door. You know what I mean? The
No, it
opportunity was
wasn't
knocking.
ready. You have to understand that I was speaking already for 16 years before I started
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? I
Wow.
mean, at least.
Man.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's not like it came and flew on my, on my
Yeah.
lap. You got to see the signs when they come around you. What do you
Yeah.
want to do? I want it. My sole and only purpose is to impact 200 million by 2025, and we are at 168 million right now.
Wow. Getting close.
Getting
That's a
close.
lot. That's pretty good. Now let me ask you this. So right now, with this is like the age of influencers, of everyone's like a marketer. Everyone's, and it's so easy to do a podcast, and accessibility is super easy.
Sure.
Public speaking for me is still a challenge, and I see that you figured out a formula and it works, and people are able to tap into that. what would you say? Is there some qualities that if someone woke up and said, you know what, I want to be a public speaker, what advice would you give them so that they don't get too ahead of themselves? What are some of the serious things that someone should consider about themselves to prepare themselves to be a public speaker? Because it can't just be confidence, right?
Oh, it's totally confidence. That's number one.
Yeah,
But number two is you can start learning some skill sets like from Toastmasters.
yeah,
Toastmasters is a great organization that helps you build your confidence and the techniques you need to start speaking. But it's not the be all and end all. You just are going to learn some techniques that are going to help you. And once
yeah.
you get those techniques and you get some feedback, then you learn the skill set that you need, the basic skill set that you need to
Mm,
speak. Now, it all comes from passion and compassion, right? It's not
yeah,
just passion. Passion is a driver. See, public speakers make money in this business, but the ones who succeed, the one who don't succeed actually are there to feed their ego.
got it.
You
Yeah.
got to not feed your ego. This is not about you. It's about a picture much bigger than you.
Mm,
You want to impact lives, then show that you want to impact lives. But
yeah,
don't be afraid to fail a couple of times. Don't be afraid to get out there. Don't be afraid to ask for the money,
got it.
whatever it is. See, no matter how old you are right now, I don't know how old you are, Sam, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to be 57. But I'm going to tell
Yeah,
you this, it doesn't matter how old you are. Until
yeah.
this minute, everything you've been through, you paid for it. You paid for it from education,
Hmm.
time, money, blood, sweat, tears, aggravations, ups and downs, lulls and ups, and all of it in your
Hmm.
life. Those are experiences. That's your intellectual property. Why would
Got
you
it.
give it away? You should be paid for it. I don't
Yeah,
think you can walk into a store and just grab an item and leave. But you're
that's
letting
true.
people do that with your story.
Yeah.
You're telling people they can just come into your brain and take whatever and it's free for all. No, it's not. In this business,
So
yeah, sorry.
go ahead. Sorry, no, go ahead.
In this business, we don't earn respect. We demand it.
Yeah. So you've obviously you mentioned the word failure a second ago. What are some failures and challenges like that you've faced as a public speaker, and what are some like big milestones that you're just like, man, I figured this out. I'm glad I got to speak on this stage or whatever it could be. So what's a challenge, and then what's something that you're really proud of yourself about as far as your speaking career?
I am proud of myself no matter what. But let me state a couple of things for you. One is that I don't remember a time where I got off the stage and said, "Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that." Like I've done that so many times, right? It's
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
can't believe I forgot to say that quote or whatever it was, right? I got
Mm,
prepared, I got all ready, but then I got pumped on stage and I got all my adrenaline going, and some leaked out of my brain because I forgot to say something, and then I went
yeah.
I got off on the stage and I was like, darn, I should have done this. I should have done that, right? I can't believe I forgot a whole story. I just spoke in Orlando 2 weeks ago and I got off the stage and I'm like, darn, I forgot to tell that story. The most important story. I forgot to tell it, right? Just life, guys. It's not important. Nobody remembers. And if you fail on stage, nobody knows but you because nobody knows what
Yeah.
you were going to talk about anyway, right? That's the first one. The second time is the most embarrassing moments. We have embarrassing moments. One day I got on stage because I was presented. And as soon as the guy said, well, let's welcome Orly Amor, right? And I went on stage. And as soon as I got to DMC, I tripped over my foot and I flat on the stage with my face
Oh,
down.
yeah. That's one of
But
the
you
worst fears for
know
a public speaker.
right, and what I did was because of my experience and my confidence, because you said it's not just confidence, it's totally confidence.
Yeah.
Because of my confidence, I turned my head to the crowd from the floor because what I heard on the crowd was like, oh my god, right?
Yeah.
And I said to the crowd, are you guys okay? everybody
That's pretty
cracked
good.
Everybody cracked up laughing.
Own
While
you own the
they're
moment.
laughing, he helped me up, I got up and I was hurt. Sam, I was hurt. My ankle was swollen after
Wow.
that day, but I didn't let anyone see it. The show
Yeah.
must go on. So you bite the bullet, you go on with the show. And as soon as I said, "Are you guys okay?" Everybody cracked up. I cracked up. I got up and, shook the guy's hand, and I started talking. And I'm like, now that we're all okay. And I started my speech, right? It was a very nice, seamless thing, but believe me, I'll never forget it, right?
Yeah.
There's been a time where I was at an event, and I tell that story often. At an event where they were all IT people, okay? So the whole time there were like 240 people, and the whole time I was on stage, which is 90 minutes, the only
Wow.
thing I saw from 240 people, that was 480 eyes at me, and all I saw was this
Yeah.
the whole time. So I got off the stage and I went to the event planner, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. These people look like robots from where I was," right? And she's like, "Are you kidding? They loved you. They want me to bring you back." And I'm like, "What?
Oh, like
Were they
what?
even breathing? Nobody was breathing. Were they
You're
looking
like,
at their
when?
phone? Nobody was looking at their watch. Nobody was looking at their
Yeah.
phone." So it's, you know what? We judge ourselves a lot more than the people will. We so judge ourselves and we beat ourselves up so badly, right? And that's what we need to stop doing.
Mm,
Be
yeah.
yourself. Here's what I say to people: does a flower need to say that she's pretty?
Hmm.
Just be. The flower
Just
is
be.
being. She's not asking for anyone like, "Oh, look at me. I'm wearing a yellow rose today." No, just be yourself.
Yeah.
There are,
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
in this journey, um, with failure, when you just facing things, whether it was challenges, I always like to ask, like, how do you see failure? How do you confront it and learn from it, or just your insight on the word failure and people facing failure?
Well, you know what? If you're going to fail, fail forward, right? I think it's Les Brown that said that. But here's what I'm going to say is that really failures are not failures, they're lessons.
Mhm.
So when I fail, or when I goof off, or when I do something goofy, or something that I call my duh moment, right? Duh, Orly, right? When I do that, I ask myself, okay, what's the lesson learned? I
Mm,
had a time where a few of my employees stole $84,000 out of my bank account.
that hurts.
It hurts. What's the lesson?
Yeah,
Right?
that's
You
hard.
gotta,
That's hard to get to the lesson. That
well,
is so
and
bad.
here is that's the paradigm shift in the brain. You gotta be
Yeah.
able to say to yourself, okay, yes, this hurts. What's the lesson learned? What have you got to learn from this? And I've had people who said to me, "Really, Orly? So you got raped. What's the lesson learned?"
Mm,
Well, I'll tell you what the lesson learned in. And I got raped 3 times. So let's talk about what the lessons are: forgiveness,
mm,
faith in God, that He doesn't give you what you cannot hold. So if you don't have faith, you have fear. And if you have fear, you don't have faith. So you have to understand that this world operates in a certain energetical field, as well as, um, there's a divine entity that is really the puppeteer. We plan and God's laughing. That's no matter what, right? And so sometimes it's a lesson to be learned, but we think of our boohoo story so
mm,
much so that we
yeah.
give ourselves permission to cry about it, to tell people they don't understand, to be resentful, to be hateful, to not understand that we can forgive ourselves as much as our oppressors. And it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're still here. We're still on top, 6 foot above ground, not 6 foot under. And that means we have a chance to do it any way we like.
Well, I'll tell you this, okay? We're almost out of time here, but just meeting you and feeding and feeling your energy, it's so good. And I didn't want this to finish without me letting people know that when you're moving, when you're chasing dreams, and then, opportunity knocks, you do have to be listening and you have to be ready, because it was 4 degrees back. It's Orly, it was your friend, and it was my friend that I interviewed within 2, 3 weeks ago. And then here I am with you today, and I'm able to have this conversation with you, and you've been so generous with me and with our audience. So first, I want to say thank you, but I
Thank
also want to say to anyone watching, listen and like build relationships with people, and you just never know who you're gonna meet. And for me,
Absolutely.
meeting people, hearing their story, and then with you and seeing everything that you've accomplished, it's fuel and motivation for me, because if it's getting you going, man, I know that my journey can get me going just as well. And so you're motivating me in that way. And so if someone's watching, they heard you reference, what did you call it? Your speaker box, or the
My
training? What do you
business in a
what?
box, yes. So
Yeah,
I
business in a
host
box.
webinars. I host webinars, free webinars. Come and join me. We
Yeah.
have a 5-day challenge going on right now, but come and join me on my webinars. Follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, most of all,
Yeah.
TikTok, Twitter, or X. Just follow me everywhere. I am Orly Amor. Very easy to spell my name. Amor means love in Spanish. Orly means you are my light in Hebrew. And, it's very easy to follow me.
Yeah, I'm going to put the links below so people can
Good.
follow you. And if they have any questions or interest in what you're
Sure.
doing, that they can send you a message. Before we finish,
Yes.
what do you have a question or just a final statement that you want to say before, I put a button on this show?
Yes. And it's in my TEDx talk that's going to come out. In the act of sharing your story, there's contribution. You never know whose life you're going to change. So don't keep your story and don't take it to the grave. The grave is full of formulas that have never been put out there to cure the human race. There have been songs that went all the way to the grave, never been sung. Nobody have ever heard of them before. So don't do that with your story, because your story can impact lives, and that's all that matters. That's why we're still here.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Feld podcast. I
My
really enjoyed our conversation. And I
pleasure.
know that this was our first episode that we did together. I hope that our journeys can bring
Oh,
us
sure.
back together.
Anytime.
If you ever find yourself in the Dallas Fort Worth area,
Sure.
maybe we could do an in-person
Oh, for
interview.
sure.
But I just want to say thank you so much, and thank you for all the lessons and insight that you gave us. I learned a lot. So,
Thank you.
Orly, I appreciate you. And with that, thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of the Failed Podcast. I hope that you learned something, and don't quit, man. When you fail, don't quit. Learn and then grow. And then I think all of us are going to be surprised whenever we learn from our failures and challenges. So we'll see y'all on the next one. Orly, thank you so much.
My
And we'll
pleasure.
finish with that.